It's easy to think that the world is stable, that somewhere, in some secure underground command center, cooler heads are always in control. But history tells us a different story. We have come frighteningly close to global war, not just once or twice, but dozens of times. And more often than not, the spark wasn't some grand, deliberate act. It was a single mistake, a radar misreading, a mistranslated message, a submarine captain guessing wrong, one slip in judgment at the wrong moment, and the entire world can change. The anatomy of a global trigger. To understand how one mistake could launch the next world war, we need to look at how modern nuclear and conventional military systems actually work. They're built for speed. Early warning systems, satellite arrays, ground radar, and sonar networks are constantly scanning for signs of attack. If they detect what looks like an incoming missile or hostile movement, they alert commanders in seconds. Launch on warning protocols. Many nuclear powers keep forces on alert, ready to retaliate immediately if an incoming strike is detected, sometimes with only 10 to 15 minutes to decide. Tight communication chains. Orders are relayed through secure lines, but the more urgent the perceived threat, the fewer people are involved in verifying it. All of this is meant to deter a surprise attack, but it also means a false alarm, if believed, could set off a chain reaction that can't be stopped. Close calls. That nearly ended everything, Stanislav Petrov, and the missile that wasn't. 1983. Soviet satellites picked up what looked like multiple U.S. nuclear missiles inbound toward the USSR. Standard procedure would have been to alert the Kremlin and prepare a counter-strike. But Petrov, the duty officer at the time, judged it was likely a false alarm. And he was right. The satellites had mistaken sunlight, reflecting off clouds for missile launches. His decision to do nothing may have saved hundreds of millions of lives. The Norwegian rocket incident, 1995. A scientific research rocket launched from Norway triggered Russian early warning systems. The rocket's trajectory looked identical to a U.S. submarine-launched nuclear weapon aimed at Moscow. President Boris Yeltsin activated the nuclear briefcase for the first time in history. Only minutes before a possible retaliation, analysts confirmed it was harmless. Able Archer 83, a drill misread as an attack. During a NATO exercise simulating nuclear war, the Soviets believed it might be cover for a real strike. They placed nuclear-capable bombers on alert. Had a single false signal come through during those tense days, the Cold War could have gone hot instantly. Why the risk is higher. Today, the Cold War may be over, but the number of potential flashpoints has grown. Instead of just two superpowers in a standoff, we now have multiple nuclear-armed states, rising regional tensions, and cyber warfare in the mix. Multipolar risk. More nations with nuclear capability means more chances for miscalculation, especially in contested regions like the South China Sea, the Taiwan Strait, or the India-Pakistan border. Faster weapons. Hypersonic missiles reduce detection to impact times to mere minutes, giving decision-makers even less time to verify alerts. Cyber threats. Hackers could potentially spoof radar data, jam communications, or insert false warnings into command systems. Unmanned systems. Drones and AI-assisted targeting make rapid response more automated and potentially more vulnerable to technical errors. One glitch in any of these systems during a high-tension moment could start a war no one actually intended. The human factor. The technology is only part of the danger. Humans are emotional and under extreme pressure. They can misinterpret signals or act on incomplete information. Stress and fatigue. Commanders on alert for days or weeks can lose their edge in judgment. Political pressure. Leaders may feel forced to act aggressively to avoid looking weak. Chain of assumptions. If one side believes the other has already committed to an attack, they may strike first, just to be safe. When you combine fallible humans with ultra-fast, high-stakes systems, the margin for error is razor thin. Where we stand right now? In 2025, several global flashpoints are simmering. Eastern Europe, NATO, and Russian forces frequently intercept each other's aircraft and shadow naval movements. One misinterpreted maneuver could spark a spiral. The Taiwan Strait. Chinese military exercises are growing in scale and proximity to Taiwan. A collision or accidental missile launch could ignite a regional and possibly global conflict. The Korean Peninsula, North Korea's ongoing missile tests keep both South Korea and the U.S. in a constant state of alert. A test mistaken for an attack could escalate rapidly. The Middle East. Multiple state and non-state actors operate in close quarters, with proxy conflicts overlapping. One strike on the wrong target could trigger direct confrontation between major powers. These are not what-if scenarios. They are live conditions right now, and all it takes is a single error at the wrong moment to set the dominoes in motion. Hour zero. The mistake happens. It begins with something small. Maybe it's a radar return that looks too perfect to be natural. Maybe it's an intercepted communication that seems to confirm the worst. Or maybe it's a military drill that starts earlier than expected, right as the other side's satellites are overhead. Whatever it is, someone somewhere sees it, believes it, and hits the alarm. Within seconds, early warning systems send alerts to the highest military command. In nuclear-armed states, this means an immediate escalation to launch-on-warning readiness. The clock starts ticking, sometimes with less than 15 minutes to decide if the threat is real. Minutes 1 to 3. Initial assessment detection teams. Radar, infrared, and satellite operators verify their readings. Are there multiple points of origin? Do the speeds and trajectories match known weapons? Command chain activation. In the U.S., the president and top defense officials are instantly patched into secure communications. In Russia, China, and others, a similar nuclear briefcase system comes online. Diplomatic silence. There's no time to pick up the phone and calmly check with the other side, especially if the incoming threat is minutes away. Every second spent verifying could be the second you get hit. At this stage, leaders are staring at incomplete data. They know if they wait and the threat is real, they could lose their own ability to respond. But if they act and it's false, they could start the very war they fear. Minutes 4 to 7. Confirmation pressure. False alarms are rare, but not unheard of. And in tense political climates, the instinct is to assume the worst. Military advisors urge caution, but also remind leaders of war plans designed for immediate retaliation. Intelligence agencies scramble to cross-check the signal. Maybe it's a satellite glitch, a weather balloon, or a civilian rocket. Cyber teams. Consider if this could be a hacking attempt meant to provoke a conflict. If even one verification channel says this is real while others are still checking, the push toward retaliation grows stronger. Minutes 8 to 10, retaliation orders on standby. By now, nuclear-capable submarines, missile silos, and bomber crews are standing by. The order to launch could come in seconds. Submarines at sea. receive coded messages to prepare missiles. Air Force bases scramble bombers toward pre-assigned targets. Missile silos. Two-person crews open safes containing launch codes. Once these orders are given, they can't be paused for long without risking operational confusion. And confusion is dangerous when war seems seconds away. Minutes 11 to 13. The diplomatic void. At this point, diplomatic channels might open, but they're slow. Leaders can attempt a hotline call, like the Washington-Moscow direct communications link. But if the other side doesn't answer quickly enough, silence could be read as confirmation of hostile intent. This is the most dangerous window. If no conclusive stand-down arrives, retaliation becomes the default. Minute 14. The launch decision. If the false signal still hasn't been disproved, the final decision is made. Launch authorization. In the U.S., the president's nuclear football produces authentication codes. In Russia, the Chagit system does the same. Multiple keys turned. Missile crews act in unison to initiate firing sequences. Point of no return. Once a missile leaves its silo, submarine, or bomber, it cannot be recalled. From this moment forward, even if someone proves it was a mistake, the missiles are already in the air. The other side will detect them and respond. The cascade effect. The tragedy of this scenario is that one false alarm doesn't just cause one mistaken strike. It sets off a chain reaction. Side A launches, believing they're retaliating. Side B detects incoming missiles and launches their own. Allied nations, bound by defense treaties, join in, targeting their own adversaries. Conventional conflicts ignite in contested zones, making nuclear escalation even harder to stop. Within minutes, the mistake has transformed into a full-scale global war. Why this chain is so hard to break? Compressed timelines, hypersonic weapons, and modern missile tech leave almost no room for extended verification. Deep mistrust. In a crisis, both sides assume the other might be using deception. Pre-planned war protocols. Militaries drill for rapid retaliation, and sometimes those drills overpower human hesitation. The moment the first missiles are detected on radar, the world enters a new reality. It doesn't matter that the war started by mistake. Once weapons are in the air, every major military power shifts into wartime posture. Minute 0 to 5. Global alerts. Missile warnings. Early warning systems in multiple countries pick up the launches. Alarms blare in NATO command centers, Russian air defense hubs, and Chinese strategic bunkers. Civil defense activation. Sirens wail in targeted cities. Public alert systems push messages to phones. Nuclear attack imminent. Take cover immediately. Diplomatic collapse. All remaining hotline communications break down. There is no space for negotiation. Both sides now believe they are defending themselves. Minutes 5 to 30. First detonations. Impact zones. The first strikes hit military bases, missile silos, naval ports, and airfields. But urban areas nearby suffer massive collateral damage. EMP effects. Some detonations are high altitude, designed to knock out power grids and communications over vast areas. Entire regions go dark instantly. Immediate casualties. Tens or hundreds of thousands are killed in the first wave. Hospitals near strike zones are destroyed or rendered inoperable. Hour 1 to 3. Retaliatory strikes spread. The initial exchange doesn't stay confined to the original adversaries. Allies enter the fight. NATO allies target hostile forces. Other nuclear powers move against perceived threats before they can be used. Regional escalation. conflict ignites in the South China Sea, the Korean Peninsula, Eastern Europe, and the Middle East as opportunistic actors strike weakened opponents. Civilian evacuation attempts. Roads are gridlocked as millions flee major cities, often without knowing which way is safe from fallout. Hour 3 to 6, fallout and chaos. Radiation. Plumes. Winds carry radioactive dust hundreds of miles. Areas far from initial targets now face invisible danger. Government relocation. Surviving national leaders are moved to hardened bunkers. Command shifts to continuity of government facilities. Information. Vacuum. With much of the internet and television knocked offline, rumors spread wildly. Some believe ceasefires are in place. Others think more strikes are guaranteed. Hour 6 to 12, second wave targeting infrastructure attacks. Power plants, oil refineries, and water treatment facilities are hit to cripple long-term recovery. Maritime warfare. Submarines and aircraft carriers launch strikes against naval assets in coastal cities. Civilian unrest. Looting and violence erupt in some areas as law enforcement disappears. In others, communities band together to defend resources. Hour 12 to 18. Partial ceasefire attempts. Diplomatic probes. Through third-party nations, limited messages are exchanged. Some leaders push for a pause to assess damage and prevent extinction-level escalation. Mistrust is total. Even if one side signals willingness to halt, the other fears it's a trick. Fighting continues on most fronts. Humanitarian collapse. Refugee flows overwhelm remaining functioning cities. Medical supplies run out. Clean water becomes scarce. Hour 18 to 24. The new reality. By the end of the first day, cities gone, multiple capitals and major population centers are either destroyed or severely damaged. Military losses, air forces, navies, and missile forces are crippled worldwide, but enough remain to keep fighting for weeks. Economic systems shattered, stock markets are gone, currency value is meaningless in strike zones. Barter begins almost immediately. Civil defense strategy shifts. Governments focus on protecting what's left, key leadership, industrial capacity, and remaining population centers. The day after. Why the mistake no longer matters. At this point, it's irrelevant that the war began by accident. Publics on both sides have seen the devastation. National narratives are rewritten to justify retaliation and continued fighting. The first day of a mistaken global war becomes the first day of an intentional one. Final reflection. The most terrifying truth about this scenario is that the trigger is not a deliberate choice for war. It's a human error amplified by systems designed for speed, mistrust, and destruction. We've survived dozens of close calls because, in those moments, a few people made the courageous decision to wait rather than react. But with faster weapons, more players, and cyber vulnerabilities, the next mistake might not leave room for hesitation. The line between peace and catastrophe is as thin as a blip on a radar screen. And once that blip is believed, the countdown is already too far gone. If you want to go deeper on this topic, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications.